Boy, did that bring back memories. How many of us were here back then? There's a few of us that were, oh, wow, that was incredible. So much work, such teamwork. It was awesome. And it's such a blessing that we could get to share those videos from that time. Would you please pray with me? Gracious and amazing God, you have shown us and given us so much. Help us, O Lord, in our daily, in our minute-by-minute existence and being. Find creative, authentic ways to reciprocate to you your love. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. I want to express my appreciation and thanks to Pastor Wayne Johnson, Kathy Alexander for being so brave and so kind and invite me to come and speak today. Be with you. Brave in the sense that with David's, my partner of 33 years, passing 136 days ago, I'm still a big hot mess. I'm a big hot mess, and many of us that are in the midst of grief know how it can take time and to find the strength. And so for them to give me this opportunity was God's way of using them to help me heal, because you heal better when you are in give mode. When you recognize that all that you've gained needs to be passed on, it helps the healing, strengthening process. So I want to thank you very much for this opportunity. As I said, I was really blessed in 1989 when I got to meet David Allen York. We met, confessedly, we've had a variety of stories, but we met in one of those sleazy places that black gay men, men met way back in the day. You met any way and every way you can. One booth in the back in the corner in the dark. And I was living on the down low. At the time, I was married with 2 kids and with one on the way. And I was the pastor of a 1,000-member congregation in Northeast DC. So I was a real mess back then. Cheating on my wife, but then in the course of being at one of those places that gay men try to meet each other for hookups, I walk in and there's this big furry guy with these brilliant blue eyes, and I went like, oh. Bill is waving. and we tricked for a while. Come on, y'all know that. I'm just saying it like it is. We tricked for a while, but we started finding out that we had a lot in common with each other. We were, we found so many levels of compatibility and commonality that we wanted to regularly started seeing each other. And you know how relationships evolve. And in the course of that, from 89 to 90, my wife got pregnant with Sarah in 90. And then in 91, I'm still at my church, pastoring. In 91, David and I found out we were both HIV positive. And so I had to tell my wife. it was God's way of body slamming me from the lies that I was living, the stupidity and the hypocrisy of my life. God said, nope, I'm not letting you do it anymore. But unequivocally, I know, and David and I affirm that God sent him into my life at that point in time, such that when reality would come to pass to get me body slammed, and I lost everything. I lost the church, lost my family, I lost everything. God had given me David to begin again. And so it was in 91, after I had resigned from my congregation and my wife and I had separated, and that the beginnings of all of that hell happened. Plus we were HIV positive, and people back in 91, everybody was dying. It was a death sentence. So we clung to each other even more tightly, knowing we didn't know how long either of us had to live. And we started attending MCCDC right in the corner. We were sitting in the back, and the preacher was preaching, and the singing was uplifting, and that journey of discovering of new home, new beginning, was a wonderful foundation for David and I as we were building our relationship. So during the course of the first 6 years of our relationships, we were in and out of court fighting for my kid, visitation with my kids. We ultimately won that court. But we racked up huge amount of legal bills. Don't you know that rascal mortgaged his house to help me pay my lawyer bills? This guy, not only was he cute as hell, and he loved me, and he showed it. He didn't just say it, and it was way so much more than just what happened in the bedroom. I'm just saying it like it is. I mean, when somebody loves you so much that everything they do is a demonstration and an actualization of that love. And when you are the recipient of that kind of love, what can you do but do everything in your power to try to give it back, to reciprocate it, to reflect it, to do it, to give it back? A couple of years ago with the pandemic, David and I, for those of you who know us, you know, for 30 years, David and I always dressed alike. So here you've got two bears, beards, you know, twinning all the time, twinning. And my niece came down to visit. She lives down here in D.C., and she came down to visit saying, hey, what are you guys doing during the pandemic to occupy your time? She says, I'm taking piano lessons and I'm taking Spanish classes. And I told her, I said, well, I like going down in the forest behind our house, and I pull up big pieces of wood and I build things. And during the course of me building one of my sculptures, it was what I called a doorway to imagination. And it was a door, and with all these sticks. And so she went out into the backyard and she looked at it and she freaked out. She took a picture of it, and then she took another picture of David and I dressed alike, sitting at a picnic table. Doggone it if that post that she put on Twitter went viral. The doorway to imagination and the two twinning old queens went viral. It went viral. I mean, within 2 months, there was like, 20, 30,000 followers, right? And we're going like, what? What? This is like winning the lottery with no money. Right? You know, I mean, going like, why are all these people so interested in two old queens? You know, what is it that we do? And my niece, as it's now like 99,000 followers now from people all over the world, still following because they've been with us from that time through David getting sicker and sicker and sicker until his death. And then it's still there. And so I asked my niece, why are these people so interested in us? And they said, people are so hungry around the world for authenticity. And you guys are just you. You're just vulnerable. You're transparent. You don't put on a show. You're just posting, not because you feel like you need to post. You're just posting your daily, day-to-day things. And people are craving, they're hungry for authenticity. And they said, she made the point that all around the world, so many of these people are young, gay, and lesbian people around the world, and they're saying to us, you guys are role models. You are demonstrating that we too can have real love, loving, lasting, meaningful relationship that's so much more than the booth in the back in the corner in the dark and getting your rocks off. And you can have a lasting, beautiful, loving, deep relationship, and people are so hungry for that. And so we're saying, like, we're grateful that that our lives can be a blessing. So as David got sicker and sicker, and then he ultimately passed, whenever I felt the energy and wasn't body slammed by a tsunami of grief, I would post, what I was doing or how the ducks and the chickens were doing. That's another whole story. I won't go there. I have a pet duck, Danny, and it's a lot of stories about our yard birds. But they were David's. These were all David's critters. And the love, the people online are telling me over and over again, you guys were not only role models, but you are now showing us and sharing with us your journey of grief and grieving. And for many of them, they're saying, we grieve with you and we know grief. And so many, it's wonderful to experience the difference between sympathy and empathy. Huge difference. To be inundated with wonderful testimonies from around the globe of empathy. We know this pain and we are with you. We're crying with you. This is all, my sisters and brothers, about authentic love. Real love that needs to be reciprocated. The passage today, the title of my sermon today is Crying in the Wilderness. And John the Baptist, John the Baptizer, they say, he was a preacher's kid. His daddy was a priest and his mama was a deaconess. Yes, it was. Something like that. They were very active. And so when he was born, he grew up in a house that talked about how much they loved God and wanted to serve God. And that love for God was out of gratefulness for the amazing, unconditional love that God showered upon them. There were two old people, and the angel Gabriel came and said, we're going to bless you with a baby. John was a miracle baby. And so this family knew about the love and the gracious goodness and benevolence of God. John was born into that context. And so as he grew up, he had that love that his parents had of God because he received God's love. And he couldn't understand why everybody around him wasn't loving God like he was. He got so frustrated, so upset, he went out into the desert and he didn't care about the fashion police and he didn't care about the culinary gurus. He decided, I'm going to get out here in the world, into the wilderness, where I'm feeling like I am in my mind and in my spirit, because I have some questions I need to ask the universe. Is there anybody here that really loves God anymore? I mean, really loves God. Or are we taking God's love for granted? That would be like me saying to David, you're giving me all this love. And I'm saying, well, you oughta. I'm all that and a bag of chips. So yeah, I'm worthy. I deserve your love. And nowhere in that dynamic is there reciprocation. So John was crying in the wilderness. Is there anybody out here that really loves God anymore? Where is faith anymore? Has faith become irrelevant? The text says that people came from throughout Jerusalem, throughout Judea, and throughout the entire region, and would go out into the wilderness to hear John and to be baptized by John. And I know that that dynamic that's identified in the scripture has got to perplex every preacher everywhere. What is this dude laying down that folk are coming to him out of nowhere? Wouldn't that be great to be out in the wilderness screaming, is there anybody that and people are coming? What is he saying that is attracting these people such that throngs are around him? They had heard the preachers and the priests and the Pharisees and the Sadducees of their days, but I'll be doggone, this guy's for real. This dude is authentic. What he is saying and his life and the example of the way he's walking and living matches what he's preaching. Clearly, this John guy out in the wilderness must really love God. Really. That he's given up everything to go out and scream to the world, why don't y'all love my God anymore? Ought you not be loving him, her, them? So folk were drawn on city. Just like these folk that are followers of me on Insta, they were drawn. I didn't know they were drawn. I mean, it's not like I went out and recruited people. He was just out there living his life and crying in the wilderness. Somebody, is there anybody that really loves the Lord anymore? 3 things occurred in the course of his declarations from an authentic place. 3 things happened. Indictment happened. Folk listened and realized, ouch, That's one of the goals of every sermon. When we get up to preach, if we can get folk to say ouch, that's the goal. That's the bottom line. If you can preach a message and folk walk away going, ouch. Not only did the preacher step on my toes, but it bopped me in the back of the head. So, come on, y'all know what I'm telling the truth, right? Come on, yeah, we know that because every time you've heard a sermon that shook your cage, that rattled you up, you walked away going like, I got to do better. I got to do better. I don't have any control over what you do in your mind. I can't climb into your head and rearrange the furniture. Nope, can't do it. All I can do is try to get my together. Yeah, I bleeped that. I did. I bleeped it. I bleeped it on my own. Somehow I know y'all knew what I was talking about, though. So, indictment is the first thing that needs to happen, and that happened with those people that came. The second thing that happened was remorse. They recognized, I need to do better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not showing God the kind of love that God deserves. I'm sorry that I've been taking your love and your sacrifice and your blessings and your gifts and your anointings and the ways you've opened doors and healed me when I was sick and raised me up when I was, I'm sorry, God, I took you for granted and am taking you for granted. I'm sorry. I've been indicted and now I'm sorry. Now comes the hard part. The third thing is that faith has to come in now. Because it's one thing to be indicted and another thing to be sorry, but what am I going to do about it? Huh? What am I going to do? Do I have the faith to believe that a right relationship with God can be reestablished? When somebody that's been loving you so hard realizes that they ain't being loved back, will they take me back? Will they give me a second chance? God, I recognize I'm really sorry. I ain't loved you like I ought to. I'm so sorry. That happened many times with David and I. He would sit and look at me with this pained expression because of some stupid crap that I did. But when I realized, and he would always say, you can't change the stripes on a tiger. I was telling you all that. And he said, you know, so some of us, we get up in our age and we don't change our ways. But David loved me with such devotion and such depth that he made me realize when I was, not that anything he said, it was the demeanor on his face and his posture that I was inflicting pain on him by what I was doing and not doing. And his love made me realize that I did need to change. That whatever it is I'm doing, okay, let me make a confession. I'm obsessive compulsive. Okay? And for those of us that know what obsessive compulsive can do, we OC people like things done particular ways, And we want everybody else to do it that way too. And if you argue with me about that there's other ways to do it, no. If you really look at it carefully, you will realize that your way is less efficient than my way. And that you'll come to the realization that my way is the best way. Oh yeah. You just presume that on everything. And here is an introverted person putting up with my mess, trying to make him do what I think he ought to be doing. He wouldn't say nothing. He would just sit there and put up with it. Put up with it. Shut up, CC. He would put up with it. And it took love. It took love to make me see myself. David, why are you inflicting such pain on someone who loves you so much? I changed. I stopped it. I found a way. Stopped. To the point that even he acknowledged to me that he saw I had changed. That remorse, the indictment, the remorse, and the willingness to change. He shouldn't have to change for me. I need to be the one to change my inner being, my inner doing, my inner living. That's what God asks of us. If I really have loved you enough, will you be willing to be a part of my plan? Will you be willing? Will you have the faith? And so the challenge, my sisters and brothers, in this third step of, do I have the faith to reestablish a right relationship? That faith is founded in a hope that this unconditional, infinitely loving God will accept me, will provide that second chance. It's that faith that gives us the hope that I'm not beyond hope, that I am redeemable, that I can have a right relationship with the one who loves me. One of the blessings of being with somebody like a David was that every day was an exploration day. How do I discover today what would make him happy? Imagine being in a two-way relationship where the other person is doing the same thing. Holy mackerel. Two people trying to out-happy the other. And it takes observation. You're watching. What are the things that he likes? What are the foods that he goes to? What are the projects? What are the activities? And let me go figure out how to make that happen so that I can see a smile pop up on his face. And then, unbeknownst to me, because I don't have any control over what he's going to do or don't do, he's doing the damn same thing to me. Plus, he was cute as all hell. Oh, When we get to these wilderness places in our lives, we've got to be careful not to become cynical and lose hope that things can be made right again. We've got to hold on to the hope, to have the faith that will direct, guide us to believe that God won't stop loving me. I got to believe that. I got to. Even though he's gone from this physical presence, I still believe. I have the faith that he's still loving on me. As a matter of fact, I actually believe that I decided to reframe this deep ache that I have. I have this, all of you that are grieving recognize and know what I'm talking about when there is this deep, deep, perpetual ache of longing and missing that's in us, right? Yeah, I know many of you know what I'm talking about. I decided, I think God must have gave this to me because it couldn't have come from anywhere else, but I decided that ache is David hugging me real tight, saying, I miss you too. I don't want the ache to ever go away then. I don't want it to subside. Because every time the tsunami of ache hits me, it's my baby telling me I love you and I miss you. That's all right with me. So, my sisters and brothers, I invite you to love God, to try to figure out creatively how you can love God as much as God loves you. Excuse me, but that's just a big old, forgive me, Pastor. Damn. How to love God as much as God loves me. And then, how do we demonstrate? Because it's easy to say, oh God, I love you. How do I do it? The doing of love, such that God can see that we are aligned with God's plan. And this is my, I'm going to give you all my Cliff Notes version of a quick things, 2 scriptures to keep in your hip pocket, anywhere, everywhere you go, such that you can daily practice being a part of God's plan and demonstrating to God your love for God. And they're both in the book of Matthew, at the end of the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 through 40. Let me say it again. Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 through 40. And then Matthew 25, verses 35 through 40. Matthew 25, verses 35 through 40. Matthew 22 reads, Teacher, what is the great commandment in the law? And Jesus said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Well, like that. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. These two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. All of it depends on these two commandments. That's the first verse. So love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. The second, and loving your neighbor as yourself. It's about doing love. If I know God loves me, how do I show him? By then giving God's love to others. The second passage is easy. It's Matthew 25. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer, Lord, when did we see thee hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you as a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and clothed you? When did we see you sick and in prison and visited you? Jesus said, you did it to me. This is what I call Cliff Notes. If I want to show God I truly love God, let me be a doer of the word and not hearer only. When I was a kid, there was a lady at my church that made us memorize James chapter 1, verse 22 and 23. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own self. But any be a hearer and not a doer is like a man that beholdeth his natural face in the glass. It don't mean a doggone thing. So if you want to show God you love God, love. But it takes that faith, holds it all together. Help me out. I have faith that sees the invisible, expects the incredible, receives the impossible. Faith that can conquer anything. Faith that uproots my problems. Faith to know that God can solve them. Faith to envision my freedom. I have faith that can conquer anything. Faith to reach the unreachable. Faith to fight the unbeatable. Faith to move the unmovable. Faith that withstands the invincible.